Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. I am here in East Hampton again, enjoying my work on Joel S. Goldsmith, the creator of the Infinite Way movement. I am again blown away by a book I just studied, and it took a lot of work, this one. It's called Living Now. And my joke to myself is I think I've taken this out of the library 3 times, trying to get through it. I was so overwhelmed, I took them back. This time, that was the one I hadn't done, so I had to face the music, and am I glad I did. Overwhelmingly transforming. It almost gives us an equation, a reason to be here, the how, the why, the where. It is all in this book. But don't I say this about every book? But this is the one, Living Now. And Joel really wants us to think about why we're here and how much control we have over our destiny because we have oneness with consciousness. In the Infinite Way movement, consciousness is God, appearing as a loving entity, as force, as grace, something that is always with us, we're always connected. So in this connection, we have a source. We have a cause for our being here. We've been created. God is the self-sustaining, self-maintaining creator of the entire universe. Now, he very generously gave us this spark. We are joint heirs to this kingdom. It is within every soul that is here on the earth plane. So we have that gift. It's called the gift of grace. It is forever with us, and may we remember it is within every soul here at every moment. So when I think of living now, Joel wants us to not think of asking God for something yesterday because it's too late, or pay the rent next month in our prayer life. That is not how God operates. It is the now moment of grace. This moment right now, I'm creating the next minute. In the next minute, I'm creating the next minute. So we don't go far afield. We don't think about our desires and what we need having done for ourselves to work with consciousness. We have been given everything, and we've got to get it that God knows our needs so we don't have to beg for anything. We don't have to get in the way. So when I think of getting in the way, it's simple. We get out of the way. We shift within. We think about we are joint heirs to this kingdom. We've been given everything. We've got it all. So my thinking is, how can we remember every moment of every day? How can we take that time to meditate, which is key for being in charge, frankly, of our activity, of our consciousness? We are in control of how we use our consciousness. Do we want to check in with God consciousness, or do we want to be in the human or the man-made consciousness? That's our choice, 24/7. So I'm presenting the problem here. Joel mentions that when we are born, we have all these toys, we are given 90% of everything we are taught is not true. This is Joel speaking. 90% of our childhood, our schools, our government, everything is telling us fearful thoughts. This continues after we go off on our own. The world is fear-based. We have a consciousness that's whole and complete before this world began, of which, frankly, I believe all of us want to go back to that state. Our state of consciousness now, we are inlets and outlets to this divine consciousness. We plug in, we plug out. And I think the beauty of our being human and being here and having the spark is that things happen to us to enlighten us, to have us shift into a deeper sense of why are we here. He suggests, use the word I and say your name and think about where could that be. There's an invisible force within us. God is invisible and we are invisible. We're spirits. We have a divine body, we have a divine soul, and we have a mind which is controlled by the I from God, by the ultimate source is in control of the mind, which can think here. It can think about good, it can think about evil. It sees the duality here, it sees good and evil, and that's where we are. That's what we're in the midst of. This is what we have been given. So God has nothing to do with good and evil. He doesn't even know what that is. He's pure, giving love. It's the grace. So if we want to think there's something going on here that has anything to do with God, like we were born with sin, that's man made that up. That is not true. Now, it is a stretch, I think, to say sometimes we're whole, complete, and perfect, because we are wrestling here in this jungle. It's a jungle of duality. We have many folks out there that are in various stages and states of their own consciousness. They come in, they wake up when they wake up. If they're fighting a disease or death is at their door, it takes often losing someone, something very deep and intense and abandoning, for us to go within and say, this cannot be. I have got to find comfort. One of the great shifts we can have is we have a God that is the Father of all of us, the entire earth. There is one whole, complete self. We are all involved in that oneness. We are all connected invisibly. So again, I always go back to loving our neighbors. It's what we have to do. We have got to see the innocence. We have to let go of any problems we think we see, and even if they see them or act them out, that is not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to change our thinking about what we see. God does not see carnal, mortal sin and all of that stuff that goes with the good and the evil, not even the good. So if God doesn't see it, and we want to work on transforming ourselves, if we want to be good infinite ways students, we want to study the words of truth, we want to listen to Joel's tapes, we want to get together with folks, but we work sacredly and privately. Yes, in Living Now, Joel mentions we're not looking for multitudes of folks to applaud us. We're not looking to shine here. We're looking only to share the grace that's within us sacredly and silently. And he suggests if we have a crowd of one, that's the multitudes. People have to be ready for what we have to share. Not everyone is a Christian Science practitioner or an Infinite Way practitioner. They can be in the truth, but the folks they work with can only pick up on where they are. So we have to be forgiven if we find we cannot heal the world all by ourselves. What we can do in world work is to dissolve this plane. It's a huge jump where we, in our humanness, with all we've taken in, we're not victims to this, but it feels like it. When I think of all the things I've done in my past, which have been ridiculous, how I've set up my own negative thinking and my own negative work, how I've done that to myself. God had absolutely nothing to do with it. So in my carnal mind, in my mind of good and evil and not getting it and not being pure in spirit, I have set up my own problems. So as we grow and we get onto higher ground and we lift our consciousness to a state where it is pure, it's very interesting. Joel will say sometimes as we do this work, we come back, and when we have something happen, it can shock us more than usual because our holy ground has raised us so high that then what we see here is very painful, but it helps us again to shift, to understand, to forgive 70 times 7, to not see, and let me tell you, there's so much going on out there right now, so try not to see all the bullying, all the awful stuff that's going on in the world. Try to dissolve it. I'm turning off my TV a lot lately. I'm finding that's a great way for me to help the universe. And I say that because there's so much fear that we turn on a TV now, and you know, it's more intense. We're more frustrated these days, I think, because the planet has moved so fast that everything that is going on and the evil fighting evil and people trying to outdo each other is worse than ever. The media, everything is in our face all the time. Now, I think one of the answers, as I mentioned, is we do not have to entertain all of that. I sometimes can get intense over a baseball game. If it's too close, I have to shift to something else because I get so into it. I think we have to check our consciousness and how it's doing and keep up the work of dissolving. I find the mute button very helpful. I dissolve even if I want to see something that it doesn't upset me with what I hear. But anyway, it's an interesting trip. And of course, meditation is our how do we get the splendor out? We get this gift within us by meditating, by sharing the gift of grace. Actually, when we meditate, we meet grace. Grace dissolves, it nullifies the human scene because God is pure spirit, only love. We live here to love. And that's the only reason to live, Joel says, in living now. The only reason to live, the only thing that has life is the love you give to one another. There's nothing else. Everything else is not here. There's no law to support anything around good and evil. We're not in the Garden of Eden because we left it as well. We decided we'd take in all of this. We shouldn't be hard on ourselves, but what we have to do is notice how our souls feel. And how can we handle this? How do we live here? How do we make this work? We read Infinite Way material. We read the work of Jesus, of Nanak, of Shankara, of Mary Baker Eddy, Joel. All the saints and the mystics have come. I notice when all of us need to face death or a health problem and we really get scared, we do go to spiritual healers and leaders and our churches and synagogues and our temples. We do that, and thank God we have those to go to. But now, on our journey with the Infinite Way, what I notice that the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth, which Joel has brought up in this wonderful book, he's trying to tell us that we are the virgin birth. Jesus said, my birth was not any different than yours. We have one soul, we have one Father, your Father is my Father, we are all in this together. We have each other to love. So the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth, is all of us in Christ consciousness, individually doing our work to wake up. That's our world work. Each one of us alone, it's our own job. Yes, it's nice to be with friends, it's nice to be inspired, but basically, individually, the job is all ours. So that's what the Infinite Way movement is saying. There's no second coming to look for. The first coming is already here, and we have to take responsibility for it. So as we take responsibility, we go to work. We meditate frequently. We wake up with it. In the middle of the night, if you can't sleep, we wake up with it. We do our shifting. We do our dissolving, and it gets easier. The human scene can leave us. Isn't that a comforting thought? The human scene can leave us, but what I think I'm trying to say is this journey, Joel has never suggested this was easy. I mean, because spirit is invisible, and because we are invisible, this body is a form that we've been given. Okay, it's a different form of the next one that we're going to have, and we came probably from another form. But like the trees that wither and die and are reborn, this form too shall pass. And what was a lovely idea in Living Now is that all this wonderful spiritual work that we do, as we transition, it goes with us. The journey is never over. We never started, we're never going to end. We were born before this world began. We've never had a birth, we've never had a birthday. There's no death day. There's only eternal life. We've been created immortal, eternal. We have the entire spiritual universe within us. So no death days, no birthdays. Eternal life. So, as I was leading to our assignment about the second coming, which doesn't exist, the first coming is every one of us. Now that we have had the saints, and there are many saints that have done work that we don't know about, but our job now, every one of us has to show up because we have the mind that Jesus had, that Buddha had, that Joel has. We all have that mind. We have the same birth that Jesus had. We are all here to dissolve humanness, to dissolve negative thinking, carnal thinking, In the divine plan, there's no negative thinking. There's no human plane. We stepped out of the Garden of Eden. We look at it, and I get some compassion out of that, thinking, okay, I did step out, and I'm facing all of this stuff, and I'm going to figure it out. And I think we want to figure it out depending on how much drive we've got. Are you driven? Do you want to practice the piano a minute a day, or do you want to do 8 hours? What's your nature like? I mean, we all, as I say, are in different stages and states of consciousness. So we take what we've got, we keep listening for that still small voice, because that is our companionship. It's always available. We have to be quiet. We have to let our personal desires go. We have to live in the now moment, knowing this moment is the next moment. Don't think about next week, what happened in the past, that's gone. There's only the grace of God in this moment. Now, as we meditate, as we're quiet, that is the responsibility. It's a job. We got a job here. Take responsibility for your quiet time. Bless one another. Cheer the widow up. Go feed the hungry. Do whatever you can. This planet needs you on many levels. There's lots to do to help one another. We're not going to be in denial that there's nothing going on here, but we're going to serve. We're going to serve until we feel free. There's freedom in service and in accepting grace. We can be free here, but we have to take responsibility for that. We have to do something actively within ourselves for this to happen. So that's the good news. And if you're driven, you'll work hard at this. If you're not, you'll plug along until you feel you want to work harder. You're on a journey. God is your cause. Everything about you is from God. He has created you, He sustains you, He is taking care of you. All He wants is for you to be quiet and to listen. Let Him hold your hand. Let Him take you this moment to the next moment. Joel suggests if you meditate 3 and 4 times a day, you may just finish your work, and then he says, go about your day, you got things to do, and then see if the demonstration doesn't come for what that meditation was. What you felt. You need to feel the presence. So that's what it's that simple. You must go within to feel the presence of God, the peace of God, the joy of God, and you've got to give it away. There's splendor in there. We have got to share it to have it. The more we give, the more we have. We're not to go hide it in a temple. We're not to go out into the woods forever. We need to be actively involved in our gifts of our mission. If you don't have a mission, ask for one. Think about what you love to do, where your talent is. Something may pop up that you never thought of. I always thought I'd be a dancer or a singer or an actress. I never thought about this. But I guess the stage in my development is helping me to have a nice project, because studying Joel is setting me free. I need the Infinite Way movement, and I am grateful to Joel Goldsmith for having the courage to be committed to finding God. In his earlier books, his mother said, Joel, you got to find God. I think that's what you need to do, and he got that. He saw his father have a miraculous Christian Science healing. He knew something was going on. He needed to know what that was. He was just hell-bent on, I'm going to do this. He had his frustrations, his ups and downs. He's so vulnerable in sharing his humanness in his work to become a pure spirit that it comforts me in my struggles of trying to remember to show up all day. And when I do this work, I'm doing it and I come away healed with something to do that intensifies my drive. I'm driven. There's an awful lot of pain going on out there, and I feel it, and it's hard for me. Maybe I'm one of those spirits that just is so sensitive, but it helps me to know when people transition, even out of tragedy, that every soul, every sparrow, everything that's life, everything in your consciousness that takes in nature and birds and animals and your pets, they're all part of your growth. They all grow with you. God takes care of the sparrow. He certainly takes care of all of us that transition. When our service is up, He calls the shots. It's just what happens. We are here, and as long as we're useful, You'll wake up the next morning and say, okay, I'm on deck. What's up? And it's good to have a sense of humor. It's good to be grateful for that still small voice. And it can come as a hunch. It can come as a newspaper. It can come with you overhearing someone talk next door. You'll just know it's for you because it meets your need. And the demonstration, if it doesn't come immediately, can come later in the day. It's pretty fascinating, the mystery of the still small voice. Imagine that God is speaking to everybody. He's just waiting for every one of us who has that still small voice. He wants to be in touch with you. He's there all the time waiting for you. And what patience he must have, or she, or the energy, or the vortex. It's love, it's invisible. I think thinking of ourselves as invisible spirits filled with everything that is perfect is helpful. It's a goal. Just think, you're perfect. You got a perfect body, you got perfect health. Perfect everything is yours because you are joint heir to the kingdom. It was where you were before this world began. It's where we're all going home. We want to go back to the Father's house. We want the peace that passes everything here. We want to give that away to have it. So that's our assignment, friends. Be of service. In any and every way, there are ways every day that something will show up where you can give of what you have and what you are. Just being a thoughtful ear for someone. You don't have to even agree with what they have to say. This is the interesting part about what we run into all the time, are human beings that make no sense, that are negative. We have to know for them. And in our silence and our sacred gift within us, in our quiet delivery within us, they pick up on that. I've mentioned that before. They pick up on how much you love them, how much you accept them for where they are. I'm tested all the time, trying to keep my mouth shut when I might want to say something and it really isn't going to help me or anyone else. I don't want to separate myself from anyone. I want to connect with all souls, one self, one. We are responsible for our destiny because we are one. We can do that. We have to know that. We are responsible because the answers are within us. God has the answer to everything if we take responsibility and go to work. It is all up to us. So I recommend living now. I recommend that you forget your desires. I suggest you just be quiet and think and listen. Just listen for your very life. It will be given to you. If it doesn't come immediately, it could. And the mystery of the voice is so interesting because folks hear it in different ways. Sometimes you can just hear that statement. Sometimes it's a feeling. That hunch is God working with you. Right down to little things. I am feeling so blessed about accepting the fact that God just works in mysterious ways. It does not have to be the way I might work, but boy, you know it's an answer when it comes because you have allowed your best friend to be with you. He knows who you are, what you need, and what your desires are. He wants to fulfill you, and he offers you that constantly. So my friends, The Infinite Way Movement by Joel S. Goldsmith. He's written so many books, over 30, 40 books. He has many, many tapes. There are many websites to find him. You can hear him online. He did such a masterful job. And by the way, as a teacher, it was interesting in this book, as he shared as a lecturer, he was learning along with his students because it was just flowing through him. If he'd get nervous and he didn't know what he was going to do or what he was going to say, he would really learn along with the students he was sharing with because it was just coming to him. It was given to him. I guess he meditated so long and hard that that was the gift that he received. And that inspires me to work harder because I'm a high energy person and for me to sit and meditate isn't always natural. But I'm finding more and more that I was given this mission to study this work because it helps me to figure it out. I had to be slapped down with something, And it's so interesting with my father, Nathan G. Chatterton, who was a Christian Scientist, who I saw slave over the key to the scriptures every day. And I used to think, oh, what is he doing? Or Margaret Teeters, who showed me the other side of this, showed me the vortex of love. Or Joy Smith, the gal, this mystic I worked with for years, where we just grew together. I have been given mentors on my path. Those were given to me. My journey out of my body was given to me. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't ask for it. I didn't know it existed. Those gifts of grace, they will show up for everyone in a different way. But that gets us off on our job. It gets us off on celebrating, working hard. So, don't look to the future. Don't expect anything in the past. Just know that if you're a little frustrated, this planet is it's spinning very fast. I don't know if that's fair, maybe it's relative, but it seems to me that we're spinning very fast with so much technology, so much knowledge, so much stuff, so many problems on the internet, so many people trying to, foul things up for us. I mean, we live in a complicated world where we need more and more. I think it shows us that as we spin faster for the good stuff, the bad stuff is why we spin faster for the good stuff. We have to get away from that. It forces us to be inner. It forces us to look for something better than that. And better than that is the still small voice. There is nothing else. Your hand is constantly being held. It's the beauty of having a cause that made you. He didn't make you with sin. You don't have to feel it's your fault. If you're a victim to anything, you did it to yourself. And that is true. In our humanness, we're victims to our negative thinking, what we create negatively. We get all our own karma back. There is no karma in God's consciousness. There's no good and evil. There's no, as we sow, so shall we reap. No, we do that humanly because something in our human nature told us that's what we were supposed to do, that we would pay the price. Well, we do pay the price, but we don't have to. And I'm beginning to wind down a little, folks, but I want to get back to this karma. This is man-made. This is man-made. There's no anything coming back to us when we're pure of consciousness. We have to do our studying. We have to meditate. We have to read something inspiring. We can do that. We have all this wonderful resources to walk on water. Erase karma. And if you've had any, it's of your own doing. God had absolutely nothing to do with it. He's not punishing you. He didn't create you sinful. He created you perfect with a big challenge, but he gave you the grace of God within you. And what more could one ask for than that still small voice? As we skid to a halt many days, frustrated, we can skid and say, okay, I surrender. In this moment, this now moment, this is all there is. There wasn't one a moment ago, and there's not 1 year. We're right there in the moment of the vortex of the grace of God, the gift that we have all been given. So thank you, Joel, and thank you for writing Living Now, and thank you, my friends, for joining me on Awaken the Dream. You do so much for me by being with me. Thank you.